Hello boys and girls, it's Danny here, aka the Music Hermit, back with another video for you all. And today I want to talk to you about scales. More specifically, what scales are from both a musical and technical perspective, and how you can build a scale and use it on pretty much any instrument of your choosing. Let's take a look. So scales are one of those things in music that tend to get mentioned a lot but are often feared or even misunderstood. I want to start with the purpose of scales from a musical perspective because ultimately we're here to be able to play and make music, right? So why do we have scales and why are there many different types of scales? Think of different kinds of scales like you would think of different kinds of spices that you would use with food. Different spices perform different functions, give you different tastes, or like colors for a painting. So the more different types of colors you have, the more you can mix and match and the more options you have for the final painting that you want to achieve. From a musical angle, this is important because when we're writing music or we're playing music, we want to have as many options as possible when it comes to the texture, if you like, that we want to create in our sound. For example, let's take a major scale. Let's take a G major scale. It's a very specific sound. It's quite bright, it's quite a joyful, happy sort of sound, right? That's how most people tend to classify major scales. Let's now use the same key but a different scale. So let's play a G minor scale now. It's darker, it's a bit more of a sort of a sad, serious, somber sound, right? And you can do this with any scale. I'm not going to play all the scales now. So there are different type of minor scales, for example. There's the harmonic minor scale, you've got pentatonic scales, chromatic scales and all that. Now, from a technical perspective, all a scale really is, fundamentally, is a group of notes that are ordered and grouped together by a specific formula of tone and semitone intervals. Right? So what do I mean by this? Let's, for example, take probably the most common type of scale and the scale that a lot of people start out with on any instrument, guitar, piano, saxophone, whatever it is, which is the major scale. So in order to explain this better, let's take a real life example using, let's say, G major, which we've already used before earlier in this video. If I want to build any sort of major scale, all I need to really know is that any major scale is built by using a very specific tone and semitone formula, which every major scale has to follow. The formula is this: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Now, the reason for these gaps, these intervals, it's down to physics, fundamental frequencies. It's basically the mathematics of music. I'm not going to get into that in this video because it's quite a detailed, interesting, but detailed and advanced topic, so it's not the point. But all you need to know for now is that the reason for these intervals is that different frequencies in relationship to each other when it comes to the wavelength of notes give certain sounds, right? So based on the mathematics and the physics of it all, the major scale has this very specific formula. Now, what does it mean when I mention all these tones and semitones, right? It can sound a bit confusing at first, but it's really not. So let's take a look. If I want to play G major, for the sake of simplicity now, let's say that I'm going to start with G. So the first note, also called the first degree, is going to be the G, which I'm going to play here on the 3rd fret of the low E string. Now let's remember the formula: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. The first interval jump is a tone. We start counting this from the first note going to the second. So this means that the first tone interval is going to apply from G, and now I have to go a tone up, which is going to take me to A. On guitar, a tone interval is a jump of 2 frets. On your instrument, it could be different. On the piano, it's either 2 white keys next to each other, a white key and a black key, or a black key and a white key, right? I'm showing you on guitar today. So the first tone goes from G to A. What's the next step in the formula? It's tone, tone. So the second step is also a tone. So we skip another tone. So it takes us from A to B. Remember, the interval takes you from one note to the other, right? So far we have G, which is the root note, the home note for G major, tone, tone. So far we have G, A, and B, which are the first 3 notes of the G major scale. Let's keep going. What's the next interval? So we have tone, tone, semitone. So the next interval going from B is going to be a semitone, which takes us to C, right? So now we have the first 4 notes of the G major scale. G, A, B, C. Let's keep going. Tone, tone, semitone, tone. Next one's going to be a tone. C to D, tone. So the next note is a D. Another tone. D to E. So far we have tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. We've got 2 left. The next note is going to be F sharp. Why? Because another tone. And the last step of the formula, the last interval we have, is a semitone, which is going to take us from F sharp conveniently back to G. So now we're back at G. This G is an octave higher than the original G we started from, the root note, but it's still a G. Now what happens when you get to a G? You guessed it, the cycle starts again. So if you have completed the whole cycle, then you can just start the tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone formula to create the scale again just an octave higher. So let's say we get to this G here. For simplicity, I'm going to play that same G here on the 5th fret of the D string. It's the same exact note, right? Just for simplicity, because I'm running out of space up here. So if we're at this G, then we start again. The first formula interval is a tone. Takes us to an A. The next one is a tone, takes us to a B. Next one is a semitone, takes us to a C. So I'm just repeating the same formula an octave above. So basically you can take this formula and apply it to any octave, any part of the instrument that you're playing. You can start on any G anywhere and build your G major scale, because you know the underlying formula, the building block, which is going to give you that scale. So just to review, let's take a look at all the notes in the G major scale and how we got to them. We started off with G, tone to A, tone to B, semitone to C, tone to D, tone to E, tone to F sharp, semitone to G. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. There you go, kids. That's all there is to it. Now on guitar specifically, it's important to note that the way I've played the scale now on one string is not the most practical, but it's a good way of sort of getting an overview of how the scale works. On guitar, we have the advantage that different notes can be played on more than one position on the guitar. So then what we end up doing to make it more economical is we'll take this G major scale and we'll spread it out over a few strings so it's more practical to play, right? So maybe it would look something like this. You can take that formula and build any major scale from anywhere just by using those tone and semitone intervals. So if you wanted to, for example, play a B flat major scale, you'd apply the same principles, but instead of starting from a G, you start from a B flat. So let's say I start from the B flat on the 1st fret of the A string. I'd do the same thing. I'd go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Same, which gives me B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. Now, what about different kinds of scales, right? Let's take a minor scale, for example. A minor scale uses a different tone and semitone formula than the major scale, but it's still a formula. Tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. So let's take a real life example. Let's go with C minor. Let's say you want to play a C minor scale. In this case, I'm starting on the C on the 3rd fret of the A string. Again, depending on what instrument you're using, it can vary. And I'm going to play the first note, which is a C. It's our key, it's our home note or root note, right? Starting from C, the first interval is a tone, takes us up to D. Second interval is a semitone, which takes us to E flat. So far we have C, first degree of the scale, D, second degree of the scale, E flat, third degree or third note of the scale, that's your minor third. Next, so we have tone, semitone, tone, so we're up to F now, tone, we're up to G, semitone, A flat, tone, B flat, that's your minor seventh, and we're back to C. So to recap, we have C, which is your first degree or root note, home note, D, which is your second degree, E flat, third degree, that's your minor third, F, which is the fourth note in C minor, G, which is the fifth, A flat, which is the sixth, the minor sixth, B flat, which is the minor seventh, and we're back to C, which is the root note, just an octave higher, at which point the cycle starts again. So guys, as you can see, that's really all there is to it on a theoretical sort of level, on a fundamental level. Now, obviously, there's a lot more scales than just major and minor, but basically every scale you can think of follows a particular tone and semitone intervallic formula. So once you know that formula, you can create any scale in any key that you want, which is quite powerful and quite cool. You can do this on any instrument, guitar, piano, whatever the case may be, because the formula still applies. Now, as a side note, you might notice that I referred to notes as degrees sometimes. Different scale degrees have different strengths, in the sense that they define that scale in different ways. This is not the point of this video, so I won't get into it here. So for now, just know that different scale degrees serve different purposes in a musical context. You don't always have to start from the root note, although I would recommend you do so in the beginning, because then you get into things called modes and stuff like that, again, for now. Now, there are technical benefits to knowing scales and theoretical benefits to knowing scales. A lot of people use them to practice on their instrument. They can help with your technique, with your dexterity. They'll help you know which notes are where on your instrument. You get more familiar with note placements and things like that. And that's obviously very important. So scales will help you to become much more familiar with your instrument, and they will also give you a significant advantage when it comes to the theoretical aspects of things. However, it's important to always keep in mind that the ultimate application and purpose of scales is musicality. Scales are kind of building blocks of a lot of other things that we use in music. So it's pretty good to sort of have a grounding in scales and scale knowledge, while at the same time keeping in mind that scales are a means to an end, not the end itself. Learning scales is all about having more tools at your disposal to be able to play music the way you want to play it, to have more different kinds of sounds that you can use in your own music, to have more variety, to expand your musical vocabulary and to expand your music vocab, and ultimately to expand your music vocabulary and language, which you can use when you're improvising or you're writing music, etc., etc. Okay guys, so I hope that's helped you out and you found this useful. Let me know in the comment section what you think, or if you need me to clarify any concepts. Feel free to like the video if you like the video, and subscribe to my channel, because I've got a lot of content coming up for you guys that I would love to share with you. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I've been Danny, aka the Music Hermit, and I will see you next time.